Hey, what's up everyone? I'm Chris, and in today's video, I'm going to recap my 2025 mountain bike race season. I'm going to share my highest moments, some lows, but more importantly, I'm going to share the lessons learned along the way with training and racing. So if you raced this year or are planning to next year, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more mountain bike content in the future. All right, now let's start from the very beginning. In the preseason leading up to the race season, I had set one goal. That was to race the Mid-Atlantic Super Series in Cat 2 and to be competitive. My wife and I were expecting our very first child in March, so I wanted to set a realistic expectation and not set a bar too high and just become disappointed throughout the year. And this is also my first year racing. I just wanted to be in the mix and just have fun racing. Now, the training tools that I used to meet those goals were Trainer Road and Dialed Health. I used Trainer Road for all of my bike-specific workouts, and I used Dialed Health for strength training. Now, I have a home gym that I use and an indoor bike trainer, which brings me to lesson number one: convenience. An indoor trainer is by far the best upgrade that you can make for your health and fitness and riding just in general. No more excuses if the weather is bad, your bike is down for repairs, or if you're just short on time. You can quickly jump downstairs for an hour or so and jump on the bike and do a workout any time of day. It doesn't even have to be daylight. So an indoor trainer was an absolute game changer for me and something that I highly recommend for you if you're serious about training. As some of you may know, I am an avid skier, as you can see by the skis up here on the wall. So throughout the ski season, January to basically end of March, I was skiing a lot and trying to train in the gym and on the bike all at the same time. This was just a little bit too much for my body to handle and recover from with the outside stressors that I had going on in life at the time. So lesson number two that I would like to share with you is just to listen to your body and not just rely on your training calendar. Sure, there may be some days where you're just a little tired or unmotivated, but you can still get a workout in. But if you're just constantly in that sort of tired, fatigued state, you're really not going to be making many improvements in your fitness. So in the future, I plan on just doing 2 strength training sessions a week during ski season and 2 hard bike sessions with 1 endurance ride during the week as well, sort of 3 total rides. I think this will be a more manageable training load, and I think I'll actually be able to improve my fitness throughout the winter if I adhere to this. All right, now let's get into the race season. Race number 1 was at Fairhill in Elkton, Maryland. It was the very first race of the year in April 18th or so, roughly 4 weeks after my daughter was born. Shout out to my wife for not killing me, for leaving for half a day to go ride my bike. But it was great to get out of the house and just get some fresh air. My sleep schedule was all over the place at this point. I was not getting much sleep at all. So for this race, I was team no sleep and I did not have the best form heading into it. So I set my expectations relatively low. I just wanted to go up to this race, have a good time, and kind of see where I stacked up versus the competition. And as expected, this was my worst race result of the year. I came in 8th out of 14, roughly 5 minutes back off of the leader. I had a normalized power of 253 watts from this race, which was actually pretty good considering the form and sleep deprivation shape that I was in coming into this race. So this brings me to lesson number 3. Set a realistic expectation, one that you have to push yourself to really strive to get, but is within reach. If this is your first season racing, don't set a goal of winning the entire series unless you really feel confident that that's what you're capable of doing. For me, I knew all the life stressors that were going to be going on. So for this race, I had basically set an expectation of not finishing last and just seeing where I stacked up, having fun. Now, between the first and second race of the year, there was about a 3-week gap where I was able to do some pretty consistent training. I still was not sleeping great, but I was sleeping better than I was before, even if only marginally so. So I was in a little bit better shape and form coming into this second race. The course itself is pretty technical, and the conditions for this day made it even more challenging. It was an absolute mud fest. So my strategy for this race was to be close to front, if not in the front, heading into the single track. I was able to put in a hard effort and be second heading into the single track, but I just couldn't quite hold onto the wheel of the first place rider, and I started to slowly drift back and just went into time trial mode. Now, I'm really happy with my performance from this race. I set some more power PRs from the Fairhill race, showing that my form was actually getting better, and my technical skills, I think, really made a difference in this race. There was many sections where riders were getting off and walking, and I was able to stay on the bike and ride past them, making up time. So I was actually able to beat some of the riders who had just beaten me at the Fairhill race. I was able to finish 4th, just off of the podium. Now this brings me to lesson number 4. Technical skills might not win you the race, but they can certainly lose it for you, and they can be the difference maker. So work on your technical skills. All right, now that brings us to race number 3, and the race that I performed the best in out of the entire season, the Camden Challenger in New Jersey. I had about a 6-week block after the Iron Hill race leading into Camden Challenger, which allowed me to really build up some fitness. I had set numerous power PRs, and my training was going really well. My daughter was starting to sleep through the night without too many wake-up calls, so I was able to recover and really absorb all the training that I had been doing. Now at this race, the stars really aligned for me. It was a cool, drizzly day, which was great for me because I don't do very well in the heat. And the course profile didn't have a ton of elevation. As a heavier, more muscular rider, this definitely suited me and gave me a bit of an advantage. I had a strategy coming into this race of being as consistent and steady with my lap times as possible. I did not want to go out too hard and blow up and then just sort of hold on for the rest of the race. I knew there was going to be very few opportunities to recover because of the flatter nature of the course. So I wanted to really put in a nice, steady, high power output effort. To do this, I did not go for the whole shot. I wanted to just be in the pack, conserving energy as best that I could, and just try to keep pace with the leaders and just remain in the group. This strategy really worked out for me. I was able to only make passes and attack as needed, conserving my energy. And on the last lap, I was feeling really good and my competition was starting to fade. So I attacked. On the last lap, the last climb, I put a gap on the 2 riders that we were chasing the lead 2 with, and I was able to bridge up to the rider in second place. Now heading into the very end of the lap, we caught into some traffic, but I was able to maintain this rider's wheel. Coming around the track, it was a sprint finish, and I unleashed the Watts cannon. Everything that I had left, I put into the pedals, and I was able to sneak them by just half a wheel at the line, getting my best result of the year, second place out of 14 riders. Not only was this my best race result of the year, but it was also my best normalized power. I was able to output 268 watts over the duration of the race, and I think that really brings me to this next lesson, which is pacing. It's so important to not go all out off of the start if you don't necessarily have to. If you burn your matches too early, you'll have too few matches left at the end of the race to really finish strong. It's best to just do a nice, consistent, steady effort. After all, cross-country mountain biking is basically a time trial with other people. It can be important to get a nice start and be first into the single track, but it's also just as important to really hold yourself within your limits and not blow up too early. So pace yourself. All right, on to race number 4, the Fairhill Firecracker XC on July 12th, about 1 month after the Camden Challenger race. Leading up to this race, my training was going great. I had the highest FTP that I had had throughout the entire year heading into this at 279 watts. But one thing I did not account for was the heat. It was a super hot day, roughly 90, 95 degrees, and extremely high humidity that the Mid-Atlantic is well known for. I did not respect this enough. I was feeling really good and ambitious with this race, and I knew that the beginning of the course was primarily downhill. My tactic was to absolutely launch off the start, hit the downhill, and get a big gap, and just try to hold on to that as best I could. Off the start, I absolutely gunned it. I set a power PR of 750 watts for the first 30 seconds of this race, with a peak power right around 1200. I was by far and away first into the single track. Nobody was even on my tail. And I kept this gap until roughly a third of the way through the first lap. And that's when it hit me. I'd gone way too hard, too early in this race with the heat, and I was absolutely on the ropes. About halfway through the first lap, I slipped from first to second place, and then at the end of the first lap, I slipped back from second to third, and I was ultimately able to hold on to this position, but I was cramping and really having a hard time towards the second half of that last lap. I was able to just barely hold on and make it through the finish line, finishing in third out of 11 riders, my second podium. So this brings me to lesson number 6. Respect the heat. Not only is it important to pace appropriately, on a hot and humid day especially, you really need to lower your expectations for your power output that you can sustainably hold. Your body is just simply going to overheat faster on a hot day than it would a cool day, and you can't put out as much power. You really need to pace yourself and set a smooth, consistent effort that you can maintain, because once you go past the edge on a hot day, it's really hard to bring it back and regain your composure. Now, one thing that I found that helped me a bit on hot days is to keep a second water bottle on the bike filled with ice water and to spray myself off periodically to help keep cool. This made a pretty big difference in how I felt, and ultimately, I think that's something I'm going to continue doing next year. Heading into race number 5, I had high expectations, and having just learned the lesson about the heat, I really wanted to perform well and finish strong in the Mass XC Series finals, which were happening again in Elkton, Maryland at Fairhill on a different course. However, after race number 4, I got a really bad case of a stomach virus and was basically sidelined from any sort of training for the better part of an entire week. And then shortly after that, I came down with COVID, and I was still dealing with those COVID symptoms leading into this 5th and final race of the year. Now, I think I ultimately should have pulled out of this race and not continued to try to press on with my training in the week or two leading up to this race. I was still coughing and just not ultimately recovered. And this was by far the worst power output that I had throughout the entire year. So in the Mass XC Series finals, I finished 4th out of 8 riders. I paced myself really well considering it was another hot day, but my normalized power was only 237 watts. I had set expectations relatively low coming into this race, but I still had hopes of getting on the podium, so I was a bit disappointed with the result and just having lost so much fitness and form from the illnesses leading up to this race. Now this brings me to lesson number 7. Know when to back out of a race or training block. If you just got crushed by an illness, or even worse, if you're dealing with some sort of injury, don't just keep powering and pushing yourself through. Take the time to really get yourself back to normal and then resume training again and build up from there. If you just keep pushing forward, you're likely to make things worse. I had this stomach virus. I kept pushing through after that, even in a depleted state, and I ended up catching COVID, which made things even worse. I kept pushing after COVID, heading into this race, had my worst performance, and I had a lingering cough that lasted for about 2 months. If I just given my body time to recover after the initial stomach virus, I might have never been sick with COVID. I might have also never had this chronic cough for 2 months and just been able to get back to training faster and maybe even perform better in this race. But ultimately, I should not have even entered the race. I think that this was a mistake on my part. I should have just backed out and just got myself back to a healthy state. And I think this goes for injury as well. Just allow yourself time to heal up and recover before you fully resume training again. All right, that's gonna wrap up my season recap and lessons learned. But before you go, let me know down in the comments below what lessons you learned from your season of riding or racing. Let's share the knowledge down below in the comments and help each other out. I will say overall, I'm happy with how my season went, especially considering adapting to a totally new level of normal with a newborn at home. I accomplished my goal of being competitive. I had a 2nd place and a 3rd place finish, and I just missed the podium a few other times as well. So I was definitely in the race and competitive. However, I am a bit disappointed that my season sort of fell apart in July and August from illness. Maybe I pushed a bit too hard leading into these races. Maybe I was kind of fired up from my result at the Camden Challenger race and just did a bit too much. I did miss a couple races that were on my calendar due to family matters, but ultimately I entered 5 races and had a great time racing with good people. The Cat 2 30-39 class, or as I like to call it, the Fast Dad class, is thriving, and I can't wait to get back to racing next year. But first, I'm gonna take a much needed break from some structured training. Throughout the winter, I'm gonna focus on skiing and building up some fitness for next year. I hope that you found the lessons learned helpful, and I hope that your race season goes great. Get those training miles in. I'll see you in the next video.